Hey, it's Blastzone Mike, and you're watching The Chair Shot. And my sponsor today is the company Frost Talk. They are sponsoring the show now, and I will be drinking their root beer as I talk to Mr. Shamrock here. So, how are you doing, uh, Mr. Shamrock?
I am doing well, man. Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
I'm excited because I just got to see you. I've been trying to do this for a month now, and you when we first started to do this, you just come back to Impact. And,
Yeah, I was a year ago, I think, Bound for
no,
Glory a year ago. Yes.
no, I'm talking about just recently. You came back with Sammy Callahan, and we
Oh,
were supposed to do the interview then, and then you ended up coming back with Sammy Callahan, and then you come back again and had to do tapings. And I'm like, finally we got it, so I'm pretty happy about it. So we'll get started. My first question for everybody is, what inspired you to be who you are?
well, I think it was basically a journey. It wasn't really much of an inspiration because the way I grew up was, I was on the street, in and out of juvenile hall. At the age of 10, I was in juvenile hall, gotten stabbed, had lots of issues. From the time from 10 to 13, in and out of group homes, in and out of juvenile hall, running away, living in cars, just not doing good. Not much of a home environment. Ended up at the Shamrock Boys Home at the age of 13. And then I got obviously started learning how to vent my frustration into certain areas, sports and things of that nature. Started become feeling like I was important, and then end up getting into fighting and all those other things. So the inspiration for me, if you were going to say an inspiration, like I said, I didn't have role models or celebrities that I looked up to or anything like that because of my upbringing. I wasn't in a normal home. So my inspiration really was more towards what made me feel normal, what made me feel important, what made me feel like I was valuable, and that was through sports. And as I got older and older, there was less opportunities to do sports because you either have to get a job or you got to be really good at a sport or something. And so I found wrestling and fighting, fortunately, so I didn't have to go into that workforce. Not that I would have hated that because I would have worked with kids and in a group home and stuff like that. It was something I enjoyed, but I always wanted to. I had the desire to be in front of people. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to fight or play football or do something to where um, people would remember my name. And so that's kind of what I guess my driven force was I just didn't want to be I didn't want to be forgotten or not known.
Mm-hmm. So, so you didn't. So you were in a group home. Does that mean that you were raised by other people than your mother and father? Then.
Yeah, at I think the age of 10, I got stabbed behind a 7-Eleven store in Napa, California, and I ended up in juvenile hall. I'd already gone through some robberies, 9 years old. I'd broken into cars and stole stereos and rims and just different things like that because we didn't have anybody really. We had run away. I'd run away at the time, living out of a car. So I was trying to make money. And so I did it through stealing and things of that nature. And so it was almost like I was finding ways to survive because I didn't have any other way to do it. Right. So at being 8, 9, and 10 years old, you do what you got to do. And I know it's hard for people to understand a kid at 8, 9, and 10 years old to be doing that, but that's the reality of it. When you're not living in a home, when you're not being taken care of, you either die or you survive. And so I found ways to survive. Wasn't the best way, but for me, that was the only way at the time. So I did what I needed to do. And then I got stabbed. And I ended up getting caught because I passed out, went to the hospital. They had a blade stuck in my arm. And so I went to the hospital and I remember waking up and I was handcuffed to the bed. Now I'm 10 years old. And so that's where I became a ward of the court, which means that the judge and the probation officer were my parents now. And so then I went through a bunch of group homes. I went to Fort Bragg. I went to St. Helena. a couple different places, and then I ended up in the Shamrock Boys Home. That's where I started to find out who I really was.
And that's where you took the name Shamrock from then.
Yeah, my original last name was Kilpatrick.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And did you, while you were there, you said you started doing sports. Were you doing football and stuff like that, or what kind of sports were you doing?
Yeah, I got there when I was a freshman in high school. Thank goodness it didn't take longer than that. But I got there just in my high school year, and I had in my file, which Bob Shamrock had actually shown me when I got there. He said, "This is your file," and it was like that thick.
Jeez.
And he threw it in the garbage, and he said, "That was before. This is now. What do you want your life to be like from here on out? It's your choice." And of course, we've been told all kinds of stuff as kids, and we didn't believe the system because all we were was a number. And so I still didn't trust this. But as time went on, he was different, like the way he paid attention, the way he would ask you questions, the way that he would try to find out what things were happening with you, how you got there, your backstory. He listened to you when you were telling him how the system screwed you over. He would listen and say, "Yeah, I've had a few kids tell me that, about being promised to do this and you'll get this, but it never comes through, just so as you'll do your time." And so I remember it just felt different. But the biggest thing to me was when he'd come to me and he had said, "We need to get you into a sport." And it was like, "What do you mean a sport?" He goes, because he had experience with kids that had anger. And he said, the best thing for you would be to be able to release some of that anger into something that would be positive for you. And I got to understand, whatever. And I said, "Okay." He said, you like football?" And I said, "Yeah, I play football. And I played on the street and, here and there." And so I remember going to the school and signing up for football. And I was rough. I mean, I wasn't a nice kid. And so to be on a football team, which is it's a team sport, right? So hard to communicate with kids that didn't speak my language. And so I remembered I was lined up. They put me at linebacker, and they had lined up. And of course, I would sit there, and it was our first scrimmage with pads on. We'd already done two a days, and so we go over the playbook. So I knew a little bit about the playbook. And so they lined me up. So you can play linebacker. This is your area. You cover this. You drop back past 10 yards. Look for the tight end. Look for back. Stuff of that, all that stuff. So I'm standing there, and he says, the quarterback gets up there, and he goes, "Hut!" And I just hit the guard. It was on 2, right? But he just said, "Hut." And I hit the guard. Bam! It blew him up, and just hit him hard. And so he gets up. He wait for the snap of the ball. I was like, "Oh, okay." So he goes up, and they go to set again, and the quarterback does a hut and then a hard hut on 2, and I jump and hit him again before the ball snapped. The guy gets up and he goes, "Damn it, can we just snap it on 1?" Because I keep getting hit. Coach goes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, come here. Let's put you here at cornerback so you can guard receivers. You don't have to worry about the snap of the ball." Because I had that much aggression, that much tension inside of me, it was hard to control it. And I remember our first scrimmage game, which was at Lassen, and we had it at our place. And I remember this was like the first snap of the game. And so the coaches are on the field, the players are all, kind of lined up in the back and stuff because you're just doing these scrimmage things. And the ball is snapped. And of course, I was taught my reads, like, you got a receiver on your side. He comes in, does a 10-yard in. Linebacker will pick him up coming across the middle. You look to the back, see if a back comes out in the flat. That's your guy. If he's not coming out, then you look to the middle, to the tight end. Is a tight end coming across? No tight end. Then you look to the post to see if a receiver is coming across and doing a post. Because if the receiver on the other side is doing an in also, then the safety steps up to take him. Then you got to have somebody coming across doing the post, which is the backside cornerback. So I'm like, okay, that's my guy. And so I start sprinting at him. Of course, as I see him cutting across the field, he's doing a post, and he's coming across the field, and I'm looking at him, and I'm sprinting towards him. And I literally I'm not looking at the ball. I'm not doing anything but looking at him, and I just want to hit him hard. And so I hit him. And I hit him hard enough for him to blow snot bubbles. I mean, I hit him pretty hard as a freshman, as a freshman can hit, right? But he's blowing hard enough to him to blow snot bubbles. So that was good enough for me. So he hit the ground and I'm all aggressive, like, yeah. And I'll jump up. The first thing I'm thinking of, run. Every time I had this feeling, I was in a fight. Like I just beat somebody up or I did something wrong. And so I'm thinking, run. And all of a sudden, my teammates are patting me on the helmet. Nice hit, nice job. I hit him as the ball got there, which I'll explain later on how that could have been bad. But when I hit him and I hit him that hard, my mindset was no different than when I got in a fight, right? And that was bad because I hurt somebody and I tried to hurt this guy. But yet, teammates just slapped me on the head, which was cool. And then the coaches were like, hey, nice hit. Way to cover the receiver. Nice job. Way to come over and protect. Nice job. I was like, wow. And then the enemy, the parents that were there watching the scrimmage, they were all like, yeah, nice hit. Good job. I was like, wow, what's wrong? I just tried to hurt this kid. I got a plastic helmet, plastic shoulder pads, and I just lit into this guy like a torpedo. And they're all saying, great job. And I'm like, wow. I don't understand it. Like, I just try to hurt this kid no matter what, right? And that's when we come to learning how to live life within the rules, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand it, but I remember going to my dad, it was Bob Shamrock at the time, who owned the group home, and I go, I'm confused. I literally just took this guy, tried to separate this guy's head from his body. And everybody's saying, great job. And I was like, if I was to do that on the street, I'd be arrested. And he's like, yeah. But see, that's why I put you in sports, because it's within the rules. It means like, you can do this. You can hit this guy as hard as you want, as long as it's within the whistle, as long as you're not doing it outside that. He said, if you hit this guy and then you jumped up and then kicked him in the head, so we'd be having a whole different conversation now, other than patting you on the back, you'd be expelled from school. And he said, that's what it is in life. It's like, you got to know the boundaries. And when you know those boundaries, you go as hard as you want.
Do you think that when you got stabbed, that saved your life?
Yeah. You look at it. I went through lots of different group homes. And I failed a lot of them. So it wasn't like I got stabbed and I went right to the Shamrock Boys Home. I was going in and out of juvenile hall all the time and in different group homes all the time. And so what it did do was that for whatever reason, I had in my mind that I wanted something better. And obviously, as a troubled kid, I didn't know what that was. But I knew the homes that I were going to, I didn't want to be there because they didn't really do anything for me. They weren't fixing me. They were just housing me. They were feeding me. They weren't doing anything. And so I would run away because I wasn't gaining anything. Not that I knew that, right? But subconsciously I knew that. Like, I don't want to be why I'm here. But when I got to the Shamrock Boys Home, yeah, my thoughts were run away, steal stuff, because it was a nice home. They had great stuff in there. Best home I've been to. It was a mansion, I don't know how we even got there. I couldn't believe it was even a group home. It was that nice. But he lived there. Like the other homes, they had house parents come in and work 8-hour shifts. So the house was thrashed. But going to the Shamrock Boys Home, it was a mansion. It was clean. It was his home. And he lived there. It was nobody coming in and out. So he treated us like family, like his own kids.
And it was so stable, and you knew what was going to happen each day and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there were guidelines and there's boundaries. Yeah. But the biggest thing was that every single kid had different issues. And he worked with every one of those kids to help them be able to vent their frustrations. There was a kid who was not like me, where he's outward. He was more of a pot smoker, was into drugs, but he was not a fighter or a violent person, but was definitely abusing drugs. And that was his way of venting, right? Well, this kid draws this picture in school in continuation. He went to continuation. And he would draw this picture where there was all these bodies on the ground. This guy was standing on top of it. It said, kill them all. And it was a violent picture, right? And I remember the teacher, when she saw it, she literally freaked out, sent him to the office and said that, you know, this kid is sick. He needs counseling. And then of course they sent him home. And I remember when my mom, who's my mom now, who's also in the group home, she became my mom. She looked at the picture and she said, wow, this is really good. It was really good. I mean, the drawing was phenomenal, but it was really violent, right? And so she didn't look at the picture as it being violent, but looked at it as a way of him venting. Like, this kid is drawing things because he's angry and he's frustrated, and this is how he releases himself. And so she said, you know what? I'll tell you what. During study hour, because we had an hour study hour every night after dinner, she says you could sit here and for 30 minutes draw whatever you want to draw. But she said, if I let you do that, the other 30 minutes is I want you to draw an addition onto this house, because we were going to add an addition onto the side of the house. And she says, I want you to figure out how you draw the addition onto the side of the house. Can you do that? Of course, the kid was like, yeah, whatever. So he you know, he got to study out, and he drew his pictures, and then he started in on drawing the thing. Of course, he wasn't like going hard into it. He's kind of here and there. And a week goes into doing this, and he starts to really get into this drawing the addition. Other than drawing his other pictures, he starts getting into drawing this addition. So at the end of the week, she looks at it and she goes, man, that's really good. And she looked at the picture and she asked him, so if we were going to do this design and put it on the addition of the house, how many feet and how big is this? I mean, where's it going to go? Where's it going to end? Where's it going to stop at? And he's looking at her like, well, I don't know. Like, she goes, well, I'll get somebody. And she brought somebody in who was actually a dude that was going to do the addition, and started showing the kid the measurements, the geography, and whatever, algebra, all the stuff that you do to do the, because I'm horrible at math. But this kid was obviously good at drawing. And then once he saw something like I did in football, where I became important at doing something, he saw the importance he became at drawing something. But now he had to get better at it, just like I had to get better at sports. I got to learn the plays. I got to learn certain things. So he started learning how to actually get measurements to be able to figure out how this drawing and this design is going to fit onto the house. And he worked side by side with the guy that was doing it. That same kid went on to become an architecture later on. That's the difference between somebody looking at somebody as a criminal or as a person that's sick, as opposed to looking at what talent they have within that anger and that frustration, and to bring it out. How do we bring it out so that they can feel important and be able to be successful in things that they're good at, and stop looking at them on a whole as being a screwed up kid.
So did all of you become Shamrock? Because Frank's your brother too, right?
Yeah, he was adopted. He came in 10 years after me.
But I mean, did everybody that went to this Shamrock place become a Shamrock? Or did certain people get adopted?
Yeah, it was just me and Frank got adopted.
Oh, you and Frank. Okay.
Yeah, but he loved all those kids. He worked with all of them. His success rate was really high. I mean, he was the best. And me and Frank were different because we really didn't have much of a family. So a lot of those other kids that came in, they all had families, whether it was one mom or one dad, but they had somebody. But me and Frank, we didn't have anybody. So it was, you know, when our time was up, we stayed. We were able to keep getting help and to become a part of his family.
Well, I bet that was inspirational for you, right? To have somebody that wanted to be a part of you.
Well, yeah, because you got to figure, if you go back to the same environment where I came from, I would be back into the same friends, the same problems, the same issues, and I go back to the same thing. So it was a big move to be able to be able to go into a family like that, be able to relocate and make new friends. The friends I were making were all into sports, and they were all going to school and colleges. And so that made me want to go there because it was all my friends were doing it. And I was one of the best at doing that when it came to sports. I was one of the best. So they were all looking up to me going, wait, what school are you going to go to? Where are you going to go? And as I was a freshman and sophomore and started learning how to be a normal kid, all those things became important to me.
So did you go to college after high school?
I wish. I broke my neck
You
in high
broke your
school.
neck.
Yeah, I broke my neck in high school. I had already finished football. I had some scholarships that were looking at opportunities to get scholarships at some certain schools. Uh, I went into wrestling. I wrestled all the way through the season. I was undefeated. Nobody beat me. So I had wrestling scholarships. But then I went into practice one day and practicing, and I ended up breaking my neck in practice. And they ended up clamping me to a Star Wars board, which is they slip a board under you and they put another board over and sandwich you, pick
Oh,
you
wow.
up, and they put me in an ambulance and they took me 2 hours away from Susanville to Redding, California, where I ended up having neck surgery because I had broken my neck. So they fused the bone chip out of my hip, and they went into my neck and they fused that area.
How did you? This is amazing now, because how did you end up being a UFC Hall of Famer and one of the biggest wrestlers in the WWF at the time with a broke neck? I mean, how did that happen? I mean, because you see all the time, like, I'm getting to the point. Okay, Edge broke his neck. He's back in
Right.
wrestling again. Uh, Daniel Bryan broke his neck, and he's back in wrestling. Paige is fixing to wrestle again, it looks like. How is it that in that time, because we're talking, what, 20 years ago, right?
Yep.
20 some years ago or more.
82.
So how did you do UFC and WWE with a broke neck? I don't get that. Tell me the
Yeah,
story.
it's amazing because when I had broken my neck, I was in the hospital. The doc came in, he puts this x-rays up there, he shows the neck, and you didn't have to be a doctor to know that the neck wasn't where it was supposed to be. And I was like I said, in a Star Wars, this board where they clamp me together, even in the hospital. Uh, I had to go to the bathroom. They would turn me over, and there was a hole in the bed where I had to go to the bathroom. And same when they would flip me over when I had to go to the bathroom the other way.
Oh my.
And when I watched TV, I had to watch it through a mirror on the ground. So it wasn't scary to me because I didn't know the seriousness of it. It just felt like, okay, I'll heal. But when the doc came in and basically started explaining to Bob Shamrock that you know he ain't going to be playing contact sports no more, that hurt because that is what made me who I was. I became relevant. I became important. I felt good because I was able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And now they came in and told me that you can't do that anymore. And it hit me hard because I was like, I don't know how to do anything else. And so I remember I started to get depressed. But I remember these words very clearly, and it changed my thought process right there. It gave me hope. Is that Bob Shamrock said, you can lay there and pout, or you can get up and do something about it. And what he meant was in the future, like you control this. And I thought to myself, that's right. Like, yeah, this guy doesn't know me. He's a doctor. He's telling me I can't do something, but he doesn't know me. He doesn't know how my body will respond. He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know what I'm willing to do to get to where it is I want to go. He doesn't know any of this about me. He doesn't know that my body can heal pretty fast and that I will train and work hard to get where I need to go. Nobody's going to stop me. And that's literally how I took it when he said that. It was like, okay, I'm the only one that changes the direction here. Nobody else could change that for me. I have to do it. And so when I got out of the hospital, I started going back to, and I remember even training with a halo on. I tore the bolts out of my head because I had this chest plate on with these bolts that went into my head.
Mm-hmm.
I tore it out because I got into a fight, and I was playing basketball one time. I tore it out then. And then I got into a fight with a kid that was 275 pounds. I picked him up and slammed him, and I tore the bolts out of my head. That didn't do well, but ended up going back to the hospital and being in there for a couple of days and getting everything fixed up. But my mentality was I wasn't going to let this be a hindrance. It wasn't going to be something I couldn't overcome. And I remember when I actually got the halo off, I ran 3 miles. I ran 3 miles as soon as I got the halo off. And when I ran 3 miles, and then I hit the gym and I worked out. I lost 40 pounds. So once I got the halo off, I put 60 pounds on within 3 months.
Wow.
And so 2 years later, after I broke my neck, after being told all of this, I went and played college football. And I was a team captain, defensive team captain. I led the team in tackles. I was All-American and every right to go play at a university. But nobody would touch me. Nobody would touch me because I broke my neck. Even after I had a great 2 years in junior college, I still couldn't get into a university. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I had to figure out something else to do. Hence, pro wrestling and no holds barred.
So okay. When you went to WWE first or WWF and then you did UFC. So you go to Vince McMahon, obviously, because he's the boss. He's the guy that hired you. Right. Did he say that they had to protect your neck or anything?
I didn't tell anybody.
Oh, you didn't tell nobody. So
no.
So there wasn't. So how, Mr. Shamrock, how did you protect your neck in WWF and in UFC and become the legend you are today with a broke neck? I mean, I know Kurt Angle did it, okay? Because Kurt Angle had a broke neck in Olympics and all that. But I mean, we just hear those stories. We don't know how intense that is, to have a neck be fused back together. So for the stories of like Edge and Daniel Bryan and people like that come back. You're talking 20 years ago, different medicine, different ways of doing things. How did you make that work? I mean, were you always worried about your neck when you were in the ring? Were you ever worried about your neck in the UFC?
Never, because even like when I had the halo on, I tore the bolts out of my neck, out of my head. I tore them out because I got into a fight and I was out playing basketball. Now, I don't think that Daniel Bryan and Angle and any of those guys had halo on like I did, which was the severity of my break was different. Especially when you're put into a halo like that, then it's broke. You can't move your neck. So it was different. Severity was much different. But just to think about when you get into these situations, to think about it means it hinders your performance. I never thought about it, man, because all I did was go, I'm going to train. I'm going to put muscles on. I'm going to get strong. I'm going to strengthen the area where I broke it at, so that I don't have to worry about it. I don't got to worry about it going out and hitting somebody or going out and being suplexing and throwing somebody or getting hit or kicked or getting choked or any of that stuff. I don't think about it. In fact, when I went into the WWF, the reason why I didn't tell anybody is because I forgot I broke my neck. I never thought about it.
Wow. And if you would have told him or UFC, you probably would have never got in it, right?
Well, I don't think so. I think that, especially after what I'd already did, I don't think it would have been an issue. Now, if I'd have told UFC or Pancrase that I had a broken neck, yeah, that might have been different. But again, I never told anybody because I forgot about it. I literally had put my head down and started training to get to a place I wanted to go and never thought about. It was never a crutch to me. It was never anything that I even thought about when I went to go do something. I never thought about it.
How did you even get in the WWF? I mean, what happened for that to catalyst you into the WWF and be the superstar you were in the WWF?
Well, actually, I got to a situation where I was supposed to re-up for my contract, and I was supposed to get a certain amount of money. And Bob Meyerowitz came to me and said, "Hey, we're not going to be able to reach that deal that we had discussed." And I was like, "Oh, well, what's up?" And I already kind of knew because they were spending so much money on legal fees because everywhere we went, they were always in a court battle of whether or not we could put the show on or not. So they were constantly spending money on legal fees, and it was a lot. And so it got to a point where they were spending all the money they had on just being able to put the show on, being able to fight people trying to shut the show down. And so they weren't able to pay me what I needed. And I had 3 different gyms. I had a kickboxing gym, I had a grappling gym, and I had a strength and conditioning gym, which were 3 different buildings. And then I had a group home for kids where we had 6 boys in there. And then I had a fighters, which I had seven fighters in that home, and I paid for everything. And then I had my own home where I had my family. And so I was accustomed to making a certain amount of money to be able to pay the bills to keep this dream alive. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't able to do that with what Bob Meyerowitz was going to pay me. And so we had to part ways, but it was good. It was a good discussion. We had to part ways, and I had to go find something that would pay me that. And if it didn't, then I would have to quit everything and just go back into the group homework and just do that. So luckily for me, Vince came up with an idea of bringing me into his organization, and he paid me well. And so I was able to keep this dream alive and be able to keep the fighters in that home and fighting, and to keep doing the Lions and tryouts and keep growing fighters. Because if it didn't work out, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, and that would have never gone on. It wouldn't have guys like Frank or Guy Mesger or Jerry Bolander or any of those guys. Never would have happened.
So you still have a good relationship with Vince?
As far as I'm concerned, we do. I haven't talked to him in a long time. So as far as I know, we do. Yes.
That's great. And how hard was it to transition, from fighting like that to the WWF, then UFC, and then you were the first NWA, MWA TNA champion. I watched it live when it happened. I mean, how hard was it to transition from all those different things?
Well, when I was a pro wrestler first, I started doing pro wrestling first, and then, of course, went over to Japan, to the Pancrase organization, from there to UFC, and then back into WWF. But I started with Nelson Royal in Mooresville, North Carolina, so I did the pro wrestling there. And then, of course, I went into the worked shoot, which is UWF, mm-hmm. Which was really a hard style of pro wrestling. And then, of course, Funaki and Suzuki, we went off and we started the Pancrase organization, which was the real deal. And then from there, I went to the UFC. So it was almost like this transition wrestling to that worked shoot, which was like a fight, and then the ending was predetermined. And then from there, we went into the real deal, which was Pancrase. So it was almost this transition. I went wrestling, work, shoot. So it just worked out that way. And I was very fortunate to be in the path of all these things starting up.
And you are in the UFC Hall of Fame. You were at UFC number 1. You lost at UFC number 1 to Horace Gracie, right?
Horace, yeah.
What was that feeling like that first time you were in UFC with Horace Gracie? And I mean, he taught you too, right? Didn't he teach you a little bit?
No. Funaki from Japan taught me. Taught me all this. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I apologize. I had the wrong
information. No worries.
So when you went in there, at that time, Dana White didn't own it. It was a different person that owned UFC, right?
Yeah, it was Bob Meyerowitz, Art Davies, and Horian Gracie.
So as UFC went on, you fought UFC like a lot of times. You did the first one and the second one and so on and so on. So how was that for you to be in the UFC? I mean, from the WWF. I mean, was it just a day at the office, or was it like totally different for you?
No, for me, it's because I understood all 3 of them. I understood the work shoot, I understood pro wrestling, and I understood the real deal, And so because I was involved with all 3 of those, so it wasn't like I wouldn't have understood how and what we were doing in each of those, because I gradually transitioned to all 3 of those. So then when I had the opportunity to actually go and fight in Pancrase, I did that. And I got a chance to go in the WWF or the UFC. I was already understanding what ring I was getting into or what cage I was getting into. And therefore it was no big deal. I knew what I needed to do depending on whatever ring I was in.
What now? That 8-year-old kid that got stabbed to now, would have you ever thought that you would be the legend you are today?
Yeah, I guess if you think about the way I grew up, I never got a chance to think about what my future would be. The only time I ever started thinking about that was when I broke my neck and I had some downtime trying to heal up. But my thoughts were never about what I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. It was more about the focus of what I was doing right now. And that was making sure that I didn't allow this to stop me from doing what I wanted to do. And so I focused on the things that I could control. I didn't focus on things that would be down the road. Never did, never have. I always focused on today and then how I was going to be better tomorrow. And I had to start with today.
And to eventually, you're going to be in all the Hall of Fames eventually. I mean, there's no reason you wouldn't be in the WWE Hall of Fame or any other wrestling Hall of Fame. And you're in the UFC Hall of Fame. You're the first person put in the UFC Hall of Fame, right?
Yes, me and Hoist. Yep.
I mean, take me back to that day, man. That night, was it like, were you like, oh my God, I did it, or was it just like, I mean, was there some kind of overwhelming feeling for you?
Yeah, it is. It's like when you're standing there and you're actually taking a moment to kind of let it all sink in. You realize that you've done everything that you're going to do in this thing, and anything that you do from here on out is just for you. It's just to have fun in it because you've done what you needed. You became the champion. You were the best at it, and then now everybody else recognizes that. Being pushed into the Hall of Fame means that everybody else recognizes that you are the greatest, and therefore you will go into the Hall of Fame for the things that you did during your time.
And I got to ask you, the only person I really want to ask you about that you fought in UFC is Kimbo Slice. How was it to fight Kimbo Slice? Because he was a street fighter and then become a UFC fighter. How was it to go in that ring psychologically with him, knowing that he's that kind of fighter?
Well, I grew up that way, so it was no big deal to me. I mean, it was almost like we both came from the same kind of background. He was just in it a lot longer than I was, but nevertheless, he didn't go through group homes or juvenile halls like I did. I mean, I was in the system. I was incarcerated. He wasn't, but he had been fighting on the street, so it's kind of the same thing I did. So fighting him was at least in my opinion was easy, especially when I got the takedown. You get to a point to where, like, especially me during that time, where I literally had the choke on him, and I thought it was over. I mean, I literally thought he was, and he even told the reporter after it was over. He said, "Hey, I went out," and that's what I felt, was that he went out, and I felt that.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being a jerk and holding it, and creating more damage, I let up because I felt him go out. But unfortunately, the referee didn't see that, and that he was able to recover because I kept looking down at him and waiting for John to come in and tap us to say it's over, because I looked down at him knowing that he had passed out and that he had come back to. But when he came back to and exploded. And when he exploded, I slid off of him. And then when I slid off of him, obviously, my knees were, that's one of the reasons why I wasn't as good as I was, because I had torn my ACL, my knees were bad. So I had to do more stand up and let guys shoot on me and end up on top. And I got the top position. I got where I wanted, and I thought I finished him. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way. And he was able to hit me with a punch while I was trying to scramble back up to my feet, which obviously, if you watch it, I'm not the fastest guy in the world trying to get back to my feet. And so he was able to hit me with a good hard punch, and John stepped in and stopped the fight. So a lot of people kept saying I threw the fight, you could have took him really easily. And then, that's what happened, was that I thought the fight was over. I literally thought he went out, which he did, but he regained consciousness. He did, because I let up, and he regained consciousness, and he blew back up, and he did what he was supposed to do. He didn't know the fight was over, so he did what he was supposed to do. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I should have held on to it until John came in and actually stopped us. So it was just a mistake that I made. It cost me.
What's been your most favorite fight ever in UFC?
I would have to say when I beat Dan Severn for the title, because that was the first belt that was handed out. Single fight, the only single fight belt that was handed out that represents all weight classes.
Mm. What was your favorite match ever in WWF?
I think it was capturing the Intercontinental title. Actually, no, I think that one was good, but I think the best one was King of the Ring, when I actually had the match with The Rock and I beat him for the King of the Ring. That was a special one.
When you're in the ring, I talk to a lot of wrestlers because I do the chair shot. That's what this show's called. When you're in the ring, did like, say for you and The Rock, okay? Did you all talk a lot, or did you just go out there and wrestle?
We didn't talk hardly at all, man. We just went out and did it.
So y'all you just knew how to do it then.
Well, and we tried to be more realistic. We went out there and we did our things we knew how to do, and it was aggressive. So we just went out and did it. I mean, it was some things we would talk about, but majority of the time we just went and did it.
What do you think about people that give Brock Lesnar shit?
They don't know him. He's a quiet guy. His demeanor comes off like he's being cocky or this or that, but he's just a quiet guy, man. He likes to be to himself. And unfortunately, when you're in this business or entertainment business, that's part of the game. You gotta acknowledge the fans, the people that are paying a paycheck. But he has a hard time with that. It doesn't make him a bad guy. He's, like I say, he's just not a personable guy. He's not that kind of guy that wants to hang out in a crowd. He's just not that guy, but he's not a bad guy.
Well, take me to the day that you won the NWA title with the TNA NWA title, the first title that they get, I mean, nobody knew you were going to be there. It was like it was chaos. It was everything that wrestlers should be. Take me back to that day?
Yeah, it was good. It was a long time ago too. So just trying to remember the guy was huge too. He's a big dude.
He's dead now, I think.
Is he? Yeah, but he was a tremendous talent, man. Really, really, really good and big and strong. So for me, it was exciting to go in and be able to have that match with him. We put on a great show. I remember the choke slam that he went to put me in. He picked me up. I felt like he was choking the air out of me. So it was fun, man. I remember and again, it was the first time that I captured that title, first title there. Yeah. So it goes back into what I'm doing now with Impact Wrestling now. I'm being inducted into the Hall of Fame on the 23rd and 24th of this month. And I'm also wrestling Eddie Edwards on the 24th on Access TV. So you think about that journey, man. I was the first champion for Impact and TNA, all the way to where I'm at right now. It's like you look at the UFC. I was the first single fight champion. All the way to where it's at right now, and then going over to Japan and being the first Gaijin or foreigner champion to win the pancrase belt. So you just think about that, man. It's just I was so blessed to be a part of a lot of this stuff. And when I go back and think about them, especially the TNA thing, it's just, to me, I think about it and I was like, that was one of those times where especially when I had Steamboat as a referee, it was the awe factor where you're like, it pinched me. Is this real? But now that I've had a chance to sit back and look at it, and I was just so blessed to be in those positions. And
it was a great experience to watch it. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's close to 20 years now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago. I don't know how long it's been, but people have asked me about it. And I've seen footages of it, and it brings back memories. And I know that There was a lot of things that had to happen for me to be able to have that opportunity to be there and be able to have the opportunity to be able to be in the ring to capture that title. So, yeah, just a lot of things worked out for me, man. And so when I talk about being blessed, man, that's truly what it is. I was just truly blessed.
Now, I remember the last time I seen you on Impact, um, it was RVD backstage and Sammy Callahan, and you just walked off. And then you came back recently. You, you had a huge feud with Sammy Callahan, which me, in my opinion, there's two great heels in wrestling. It's MJF in AEW and Sammy Callahan. Sammy Callahan, I met him 2 years ago at WrestleCon, or he was doing a wrestling thing in New Orleans, and I met him. What a super nice guy! What a super guy! He loves his fans. Uh, to me, he is one of the greatest heels in today. Okay, I like him being a face, kind of, but I like him being more of a heel. I'm a heel guy. So my point is, you wrestled him, you fought with him, all this shit in Impact forever, and now you're lined with him. So when you came back with Sammy Callahan, he was kind of like the guru or whatever, calling the shots or whatever the way it looked. When he pitched you an idea, what did you think about it? Did you think, oh my God, this is great, or what?
Well, I don't think we pitched any. I think it was just kind of a natural transformation because I know that at times where I was actually doing matches, there was mistakes that I made and I was getting frustrated. But all he was saying was like, listen, you got to get back to you. Like you got to be Ken Shamrock. You're the world's most dangerous man. You're the guy that has all the submission skills. Why are you in here trying to make everybody happy? And that's what it was. I was just trying to make the promoters happy. I was trying to make my, the opponents happy. I didn't want to step outside the lines. And it was like I was following this uniform thing. And Sammy was just basically saying, dude, you got to just be back to that Kid Shamrock, the crazy guys, WWF, that getting smacked in the face with a chair, tell him to bring it. Said, get crazy, be that guy again. And so basically all he's done is basically brought out the Kid Shamrock that's inside of me and allowing it to be free and allowing me to feel good with it.
So you like being a heel better than a face?
I don't like being anything, I like just being me. And if that's being a heel, then so be it.
Is it fun working with Sam?
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously it's not like we're hugging each other or anything like that, but I respect his thoughts. I mean, I do. I respect how he thinks. I respect what he has to say to me, even sometimes when I don't want to hear it. But you got to also remember, when you know that you can accept a criticism without getting angry, then you're comfortable with yourself. I wasn't able to accept criticism about myself because I wasn't comfortable with myself. So now that I'm in this position of just being me and doing what I know I can do, and as criticism coming my way, I'll be able to accept that a lot easier because I'll know whether or not it's true. Whereas before I knew it was true, but I didn't want to hear it.
How is it working with Scotty Damore? He's like the main guy, right?
Yeah, he's he is who he is. He goes and does his job. He's done a tremendous job at bringing in talent. He's done a tremendous job at bringing Impact where it's at today. Without Scott and a few other people behind the scenes, but Scott being the face, Impact wouldn't be where it's at. It just wouldn't. So you got to give kudos to him and everybody working for him and with him, what they've been able to accomplish. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
And he's been there since the beginning too.
Yeah. And he, like I said, the creativity, the thoughts, the process of creating angles, they've all been really good.
What do you think about all the WWE stars that came in? I mean, was that like, you probably knew a lot of them. So, I mean, was it kind of like cool to see Eric Young again and some of those guys?
Yeah, again, like I said, it's what Scott's been able to do with the talent after losing certain guys because of some sports writer or a writer had wrote up some charges that these guys had in the past, some sexual things.
Sad stuff.
We lost a lot of talent. however anybody feels about that, that's great. But we lost talent. And for them to rebound and be better, that says a lot about the people running Impact.
Yeah, because they wrote, a couple of years ago, people wrote Impact off, and it's like, I mean, I have to say, and I'll go on record saying this. I said this a lot. Impact and AEW have so much better product than WWE does right now. I mean, well, WWE right now is better because they got the screens and stuff. But when they were going out to just the no crowd, it was so boring. But when you watch Impact with no crowd, it was just a different feel. I mean, it was, I don't know what it was, but it was a different feel. It felt good. And then AEW, of course, man. AEW's just got a great product. They're doing great things there. Do you think that you'd ever go to another organization like AEW or NWA or even back to WWE eventually?
Well, right now I'm happy where I'm at. I mean, I'm doing great things. What would happen in the future? That's something like I told you earlier. I don't look at that. I look at about the here and now. I got to look at what I can control in the direction that I'm going today,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to set up for tomorrow to be better tomorrow. So whatever happens, as things unravel, then I'll deal with those as they happen. But right now, man, I'm in a great spot.
It's great. You're doing great. I mean, you're the face right now. You are. Sammy Callahan are great. Are you doing any signings or anything in the future? Are you doing anything like that you can talk
We've
about?
we've set up before the kung flu virus set in. We were set up to do a lot of stuff, and of course that all got shut down. And so we haven't done anything since then when it came to crowds. So I'm hoping after the elections are over, that things will start getting back to normal,
Oh,
and
you're
that
one of
we'll
those
be able to
guys.
start doing.
You're
Yeah.
one of those guys. After the election, we wake up and it's gone, right?
Well, it won't be gone. Trust me on that. It won't be gone, but it won't be so much political pressure put on people, and I think that makes a big difference. Now, don't get me wrong. Those things are still out there. The coronavirus is still out there, and it's a sickness. Don't get me wrong on that. That is a sickness. It's real. But how deadly it is another story. That's something we can discuss later. But I also believe that the level of friction within our world that we have today because of the elections is causing everything to slow down. So I'm hoping that after the elections, that whoever wins, and I don't care which one, it's how whatever it is, I'll support it.
Yeah, we
But
have
this is
to.
what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying is that then we'll be able to get to work to bring the world back to getting normal again, because we're paying so much attention on the election that we're not focusing on getting the world back to normal again.
Definitely, definitely. Well, for me, it's been an honor to talk to you. Um, you're an amazing person. Honestly, I didn't know all this stuff about you because I don't like to research people. I just like to talk. And I hope you've enjoyed yourself. And like I said, it's been an honor to talk to you, sir. And I wish you all the best of luck in the future. And hopefully, if we get to go to Los Angeles next year, and for WWE week, I hope that I get to meet you. I'd love to be able to meet you and say hi at least. And
Appreciate it. Yeah.
and thank you for everything. How can people do you have a place where people can reach out to get their figures and stuff autographed while we're in this time or anything?
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, you go to kenshamrock.com. That's got my website there. It's got all of my social media sites on there too. Also, too, if you want to follow us on the actual combat circuit, the Ken Shamrock Combat Circle, which is valorbk.com. You can go check out some of the fights that we got on there, bare knuckle fights, and what we have up and coming.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shamrock. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Appreciate